Over in the US, an officer-involved shooting in Ohio resulted in the death of a 16-year-old girl. In an unusual move, the Columbus Police Department released body cam footage just hours after the incident. The following scenes might be disturbing for some viewers. NTD's Christina Kim tells us what happened.
On April 20th in Columbus, Ohio, 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant died after a fatal police shooting. Police responded to a 911 call about an attempted stabbing.
We got these grown girls over here trying to fight us, trying to stab us, trying to put our hands on our grandma. Get here now!
The Columbus Police Department quickly released body camera footage of the incident. In a slowed-down version of the footage, you can see an officer approaching a driveway where a group of people are standing. Micaiah lunges at one woman and tries to stab her. The woman falls down. She then lunges at another girl with the same knife. As the knife nears the girl's neck area, the officer fires what sounds like 4 shots, hitting Bryant.
That's what the police did. She came after me
with a knife.
Yeah, so he got her.
Officials say they requested a medic 90 seconds after the shots were fired. 6 minutes later, a medic arrived on the scene and Bryant was transferred to the hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. Micaiah's aunt Hazel Bryant told 10TV her niece lived in a foster home in the area and had gotten into a fight with someone else at the home. Her mother said Micaiah was a loving girl who promoted peace. Ned Pettis, the director of public safety, says he understands the outrage and emotion around this incident.
A teenage girl is dead. And she's dead at the hands of a police officer. Under any circumstances, that is a horrendous tragedy.
But he says the video footage shows that there's more to the story. And though it's hard, wait for the facts as determined by an independent investigation.
We have to ask ourselves, what information did the officer have? What did he see? How much time did he have to assess the situation? And what would have happened if he had taken no action at all?
Interim Police Chief Michael Woods was asked if the officer should have used a taser instead of a firearm.
If there's not deadly force being perpetrated on someone else at that time, an officer may have the opportunity to have cover, distance, and time to use a taser. But if those things aren't present and there is an active assault going on in which someone could lose their life, the officer can use their firearm to protect that third person.
Mayor Andrew Ginther says the city will prioritize more transparency and take steps so this doesn't happen again. He also said the community needs to address the recent spike in violent crime and to give young people a positive path to a brighter future. Christina Kim, NTD News.
SpaceX and NASA are sending a multinational group of astronauts to the International Space Station. This will be the first time 2 international partners will fly aboard the Dragon spacecraft. After a day's delay, takeoff is now scheduled for tomorrow at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. NTD's Arlene Richards has the details.
1. Ignition, liftoff.
The Falcon 9 rocket will soon transport the SpaceX Dragon capsule to the International Space Station. The 4 veteran astronauts who will soon be hurtling through space include NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur, Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Akihiko Hoshide, and European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. The first time 3 nationalities are in a Dragon.
The International Space Station itself is a big collaboration among 15 countries. So it is very important to do a lot of international cooperation.
Thomas Pesquet, who is French, is concerned the French government will strip him of his citizenship if he doesn't bring French cuisine on board.
And it's been a tradition really since the 90s and even the 80s. The first French mission was in 82. And there's always been special dishes being prepared by chefs or regular cooks for space stations.
The launch, originally scheduled for Thursday, is postponed because of unfavorable weather conditions.
Now, although the weather is probably going to look great here at the launch site, we're worried about those downrange winds and wave heights in case of an abort.
Takeoff is now scheduled for Friday at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Hong Kong authorities' decision not to air this year's Oscars has brought more global attention to Hong Kong's struggle for democracy. One of the Oscar-nominated movies this year is a documentary about the pro-democracy protests in 2019.
Only democracy can save us from this disaster.
The documentary Do Not Split is one of the latest pieces of art to have caused a stir in Hong Kong. The film follows demonstrators on the front line of Hong Kong's 2019 protests and has been nominated for an Oscar. Now, the free-to-air Hong Kong TV station TVB has said it won't screen the awards night after more than half a century of airing the Oscars. The decision has fueled concerns about freedom in the city. Do Not Split's Norwegian filmmaker Anders Hammer believes the decision brings more global attention to the city's struggle for democracy.
Our documentary has become a part of the story which is told in our movie, which is how the room for expression and freedom of press and other basic democratic rights are disappearing in Hong Kong.
TVB said, quote, "It was purely a commercial decision that we decided not to pursue the Oscars this year." China imposed a sweeping national security law last year. Beijing has defended the need for the law, saying it was necessary to restore order. Western governments and rights groups say the law has crushed freedoms in the city. Many activists, including US-based Joey Su, who appears in the documentary, have fled the city to continue their advocacy.
I mean, obviously, Do Not Split being nominated for Oscars is going to be a very encouraging and motivating news for the people in Hong Kong who are still trying so hard to sustain the movement. So in that sense, I would say it is not shocking or surprising for me that the Hong Kong government or the pro-Beijing telebroadcasting companies decided not to show that.
Scrutiny over arts, media and culture has intensified in recent months. Cinemas pulled a local protest documentary, a press photography exhibition was banned, and a new art museum closed to allow the police's new national security unit to vet its collection.
The Chinese Communist Party is pressuring Asian countries to change their narratives on the virus. That's one of the findings from the latest report on press freedom by Paris-based NGO Reporters Without Borders. NTD's France correspondent David Vivez has more.
A virus of disinformation is taking over Asia, and China's largely to blame. That's according to the Reporters Without Borders annual report released on Tuesday. The NGO says the Chinese Communist Party's state propaganda has scaled up to unprecedented levels following the virus crisis.
The whole Asian continent is being contaminated by the virus of media censorship and of media surveillance. This is very, very dangerous.
With the exception of Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and Mongolia, RSF says all countries in the Asian region face not only a pressure to change their narratives on the virus, but are being provided help to censor their own journalists.
The Chinese regime is providing draft regulations, is providing some surveillance material, is providing some financial assistance for these authoritarian governments to better control the media.
Alviani says countries that were engaged with democracies 20 years ago are now forming more partnerships with the CCP. This follows Beijing's investments in Asia. In order to secure these, the CCP creates deeper bonds with neighboring countries, as in Cambodia, where China funds 70% of the country's much-needed roads and bridges. The NGO director says true democracies should use their momentum to defend against the dictatorship's propaganda and set examples of how to face CCP interference. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A boat that can almost fly is being trialled on a lake in Italy. The all-electric vessel is hoping to define the future of boating. NTD's Arian Pasta has the story.
When the boat's pilot pushes the throttle, his vessel almost takes off like an airplane. So we're using about 25 horsepower now at a speed of 20 knots. And a normal boat will consume about 100 or 120 horsepower at this speed.
The Sweden-based company's new Candela 7 electric boat uses hydrofoils. They act like underwater wings, lifting the boat's hull up into the air and reducing water surface friction by about 80%. That makes it possible to cruise long distances on battery power alone.
Flying boats have been around for a century, and they have been pretty popular, but they also had drawbacks because the foils protrude quite a bit and you can't retract them.
But Candela's design solves those problems. With the use of modern technology used in drones and smartphones, Candela 7 can sail on lakes and rough seas. Sensors on the bow of the boat detect waves.
If you would have made this boat 25 years ago, it would probably have cost you 15 million euros to buy.
The Candela 7 also comes with a smartphone app, so owners can track their journey, the vessel's battery life, and control music and lighting.
The big difference is that this boat is 95% cheaper to operate, so it's basically free to cruise on electricity.
Malberg has high hopes on his boat design.
So we think this is the future of boating. This is how boats will look like in the future.
While the Candela 7 is the Swedish startup's first product, the company aims to use its foiling technology on ferries and ships as big as 200 feet long. Candela plans to launch a ferry near Stockholm in 2022 that can carry up to 30 passengers. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees.